continue. Okay, so can everybody please mute themselves unless or until they're called on? So that's you, Hubbardston, and Angelo also, the clueless child.
They aren't connected to audio, so.
Oh, they aren't. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. Fantastic. Okay, so no problems should happen. Good. All right. Do you want to, or are we going to see that next? Okay, so let's do a welcome. So welcome to everyone. May this Passover spring give us the insight and courage to create ourselves anew. So here in the Northern Hemisphere, it is spring. I've also led Passover Seders in the Southern Hemisphere, and then we have to change the slides or change what we say in the Haggadah. But here we are just starting the springtime. Well, Florida is pretty much spring all the time, or hotter, pretty much summer all the time. But elsewhere in the Northern Hemisphere, so we feel renewed at this time, and we're going to see that also with the karpas in a little bit. So why don't we start with Haggadah, one of our favorites, because we're not doing the second part of our Seder tonight, where we decided to put a few of the songs at the beginning that we normally would have done at the end, because I thought people might miss them. Because when we get to the meal, everyone is going to have their meal at a different time, at a different pace, and you'll just have to, each of the households will do your own ending of your Seders together. So let's sing together Haggadah.
And please don't try and do it the last one in one breath. We want you to be available throughout the whole entire Seder, so we don't want anybody
passing out.
It's Passover, not pass out. Okay. Haggadah, Haggadah, my father bought for 2 zuzim. Haggadah, Haggadah. Then came the cat and ate the kid. My father bought for 2 zuzim. Haggadah, Haggadah. Then came the dog and bit the cat that ate the kid. My father bought for 2 zuzim. Haggadah, Haggadah. Then came the stick and beat the dog that bit the cat that ate the kid. My father bought for 2 zuzim. Haggadah, Haggadah. Then came the fire and burned the stick that beat the dog that bit the cat that ate the kid. My father bought for 2 zuzim. Haggadah, Haggadah. Then came the water and quenched the fire that burned the stick that beat the dog that bit the cat that ate the kid. My father bought for 2 zuzim. Haggadah, Haggadah. Then came the ox and drank the water that quenched the fire that burned the stick that beat the dog that bit the cat that ate the kid. My father bought for 2 zuzim. Haggadah, Haggadah. Then came the butcher and slew the ox that drank the water that quenched the fire that burned the stick that beat the dog that bit the cat that ate the kid. My father bought for 2 zuzim. Haggadah, Haggadah. Then came the angel of death and killed the butcher that slew the ox that drank the water that quenched the fire that burned the stick that beat the dog that bit the cat that ate the kid. My father bought for 2 zuzim. Haggadah, Haggadah. Then came the Holy One, blessed be God, and destroyed the angel of death. that killed the butcher, that slew the ox, that drank the water, that quenched the fire, that burned the stick, that beat the dog, that bit the cat, that ate the kid my father bought for choosing. Haggadah, Haggadah. Sorry, that's my fault that I didn't move over to the next slide. But hopefully you were all able to join in on Haggadah.
Okay, so Seder means order in Hebrew. That's where we get the word Sidor from as well. Seder literally means order, from lisader, to arrange. And there's a set order to the 15 steps of the Seder. We're not going to do all the 15 steps together, as I mentioned, because once we get to Shulchan Orech, the meal, then we're going to cut out. But we'll sing all of the steps now.
Yes.
And as we're going, Cantor Dan will keep us surprised as to where we are in our Seder. I'll give you a hint. The Magid section, which is the section that has to do with telling the story, is the longest section of them all. That's the one that has the 4 children. It has Monish Tanah. It has many of the things that we enjoy. This has an adapted... are you raising your hand, Dad, or are you just... do you want to unmute to say something?
Nope.
Okay, that was an accident. Okay, never mind. Okay, so in any case, so we're going to sing the steps of the Seder all the way through, but when we get to Shulchan Arech together, then we'll stop. Okay, so let's go.
Kadesh urchatz, karpas yachatz, Magid rochsa, motzi matzah, maror korech, shulchan orech, tzafun barech, halel nirtzah.
So those are the steps of the Seder. And we're going to start with the first step now. So if you have not already done so, please fill your glass or cup with wine or grape juice. So please fill it for the first. Now the tradition says we're supposed to have it filled all the way. But if I didn't bring a shot glass, I was not going to make it. So, so you'll notice that I reconstructed or reformed that a little bit, where I took a little shortcut here. But if you're not driving and you can drink alcohol and you feel like you want to have a full glass, go right ahead. We're going to have 4 of them, actually only 2 that we'll do together, but the other 2 when you're doing the second half. Does everyone have your cup ready? All right, so raise your glass if you have one. I don't know what happened to them.
And since it is Shabbat, we will be adding the Shabbat inserts, so please pay attention to those. Vayhi erev vayhi boker yom hashishi, vayechulu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tzeva'am, vayichal Elohim vayom hashvi'i, melachto asher asa, vayishbor vayom hashvi'i mikol melachto asher asa. Vayifarech et yom hashvi'i, vayikadesh oto, hivo shavat mikol melachto, asher bara Elohim la'asot. Sabri chaverai,
L'chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'am, v'romamanu mikol lashon, v'kirishanu b'mitzvotav. Vatiten lanu Adonai Eloheinu be'ahava, שבתות למנוחה, ומועדים לשמחה, חגים וזמנים לששון. את יום השבת הזה, ואת יום חג המצות הזה, זמן חירותנו באהבה, נקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת ומועדי קודשך, באהבה ורצון, בשמחה ובששון, הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת בישראל והזמנים. And we add for the first nights the Shehechianu, thanking God for bringing us to this season so that we may enjoy it together with our community, with our family and our friends. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Shehechianu imanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. L'chaim.
She does.
Okay.
Kadesh urchatz.
Okay, so this is the symbolic washing of the hands, and this is because in ancient times, the Mishnaic times, the ancient rabbis used to wash before the appetizer as well. So this is the appetizer, and actually in many households now, this can be an extended karpas we're going into, where we're going to actually have more than just the greenery of the karpas. You can have any green vegetable. So if you have a salad and you want to start eating, you can actually eat the salad after we do the next step. So first we do our hand washing without a bracha, and I'm doing it symbolically because we don't have water right here. Okay, so that's the washing of the hands. I'll do a real one before we
Kadesh urchatz karpas.
And here we have karpas, which can be any green leafy vegetable. Actually, we had a little mistake with a supermarket, and so we have dill this year instead of parsley, but that's just fine. So we have the salt water right here. Here's the salt water, and we're all going to dip into the salt water.
I can't reach that far.
Okay, and I'm going to pass this here. Can you?
I mean,
This is very dangerous. Okay, take this over there.
That bowl of salt water just went over all of
the
my
lactites.
electronics.
Did it really?
No.
Okay.
She passed it over.
I passed
She
it
passed
over.
over.
Passover. Yes.
May I have some greens,
Passover.
honey?
Yes. And this
Thank
is the
you.
time also that it is traditional after we say the bracha and we have a bite of our karpas to have an egg that is dipped in salt water that represents the springtime. So we're going to do that as well after we say this bracha. So why don't you lead the bracha?
We say together, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri ha'adamah.
Adamah.
And there is no particular blessing for eating the egg. It's actually shehakol, but we're not going to say it tonight. We actually just dip it in the salt water, which of course represents our ancestors' tears. This year I also am thinking of the tears of our brethren in the Ukraine, both Jews and non-Jews, who have either just fled Ukraine or are still trying to remain where they are in the Ukraine. So these are tears from our ancestors as well as tears being shed now by current people who are fleeing from oppressive regime.
Okay.
Here, I have whole ones here.
Yeah, I prefer this.
Okay.
Kadesh urchatz karpas yachatz. I invite our friend Sue to read our slide here for everyone. Everybody grab a piece of matzah, or if you have your three, raise them in its entirety. Sue, you're up.
Okay, the reading which follows is in Aramaic, the everyday language of Talmudic era Jews. It is supposed to be understandable by everyone, but it is not a prayer, but an invitation, because it is not a prayer, but an invitation. But are all who are hungry truly able to eat anywhere, let alone with us? How many of us would really invite a hungry stranger into our house today? How can we correct the systemic problems that create hunger, poverty, and depression? Want me to read the prayer?
Okay, why don't we?
You're not up for the prayer. Yeah,
And then
prayer
we
comes
say,
next.
now there's a question, why three? Why do we have three matzot? Because I am now, actually we break the middle matzah. There is no bracha for this. So I have three here.
Right.
Take out, and I'm going to, break.
I can't eat this now. Yeah,
We're
you
breaking
can eat
the middle
that part.
matzah. We don't eat it. And we put one part in as the afikomen. We're going to set aside. But let's first find out why there are three.
Put this in the napkin.
So, traditionally, Seders require three matzahs. Why three? The three matzahs can also represent one point of view, an opposing point of view, and the compassionate understanding which bridges them both. And I think this speaks to our current lives, that sometimes we're missing that last piece of matzah. And that we need to remember that we are all in this together, really, and we're all human beings, and we should be able to speak to each other as human beings. So let us focus maybe this next week during this whole Pesach week on trying to be a little bit more compassionate and understanding when somebody comes to us with views that are different than us. And maybe try understanding, because that is what creates true shalom, true peace, because the root of shalom is shalem, which means complete, and we are not truly at peace until we understand one another.
So we have a piece of matzah here. That's the smaller piece of the matzah that we just broke, the middle matzah. And we're going to be wrapping it in a very special afikomen cover. And my husband Scott is going to talk about this very special afikomen cover that we're using.
Well, many of us have things that have been handed down over the generations, and one of the most important things to the Solkoff family is this matzah cover, which was handmade and was owned by my bubby on my father's side, Jerry Solkoff, for those of you who remember. And it's hand woven and beautiful. You can't really get a sense of it, but there's words that are sewn into it as well as the date, 1888, just to give you a sense of the time of this. So it's wonderful to have this and wonderful to share around this Seder.
You can do the honors of wrapping
Okay.
it. So if you are wrapping an afikomen in your family, the time to wrap it is now. The time to hide it, if you're hiding it from everybody, is whenever nobody's looking. And I'm going to give that job to you.
Okay.
To my Hobbiton. That's wonderful. Okay.
You say Hobbiton?
Yes, my
I
Hobbiton.
love it. I love it.
I didn't come up with that, but anyway. All right. Where are we in our Seder?
Kadesh urchatz karpas yachatz Magid.
Okay, so now we're going to tell a story. So am I reading this?
Yeah, you're-
you didn't give this out. Okay.
You're reading this until we get to the 7 chapters.
Okay, great. Okay, so we gave out some of the readings, so I didn't want to step on someone's toes. So, but this one I'll read. So Magid and the word Haggadah come from the same root, which means telling. So this is the telling of the story. Oh, I did. Which is what it says in the first paragraph. Okay, this is where we get to tell our master story. A group of people go through a very tough time, make it through a narrow place. Mitzrayim is literally the narrow place. Sar is narrow. And no freedom on the other side. So there are people all over the world who are going through a narrow place now. And in particular, we can't stop thinking about the people in Ukraine and people fleeing Ukraine and that whole area of the world. So let's think of them as we read about our ancestors and hope that they have, God willing, a deliverance as well at the end of this.
So this, a lot of text that we have in our tradition is not based in Hebrew, but it is based in Aramaic. And you can tell a lot of times that it's Aramaic if there are lots of aleph at the end of words, because that doesn't happen in Hebrew. I'm sure that there's a point that proves the opposite, but that's not.
Okay. Ima.
But that's comes from Arabic.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so
Stand corrected. Okay.
Abba and Ima are Arabic loanwords. So
true.
this tune is one of my favorites. And if you don't know, just listen along, and I'll see if I can get it right this time. Halachma, halachma. An yadi achalu ahavtana be'ara di Mitzrayim be'ara di Mitzrayim halachma an yadi achalu ahavtana be'ara di Mitzrayim be'ara di Mitzrayim kol dichfin yete ve'yechul kol ditzrich yete yifsach hashata hacha leshana haba be'arza di Yisrael Ashanta avdei leshana haba b'nei chorin halachma an yadi achalu ahavtana be'ara di Mitzrayim be'ara di Mitzrayim.
So if you have the larger half of your middle matzah that you just broke and you put aside the afikomen of, that is what we raise as we say, this is the bread of affliction which our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. Let all who are hungry come and eat. Let all who are needy come and celebrate the Passover with us. Now we are here. Next year may we be in the land of Israel. Now we are slaves. Next year may we be free. And I heard a very moving description of this by someone who is living in the Ukraine and is actually hiding there now. On NPR, they played some of these ideas, and so they broadcast this woman who was saying, a Jewish woman in Ukraine, who was saying that at her Seder, she's going to be saying next year, not in the land of Israel, but next year in a free Ukraine. So that's what they're saying there, and our hearts are with them. Okay. The 4 questions. So, do you want to lead it? No?
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay,
I'll
that's
do
fine.
it.
That's
No
fine.
problem.
Okay.
So the 4 questions. As
It says the whole song is not showing. Is that right now? Oh, that was from before.
yeah,
Okay.
that was when we were doing Haggadah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good. Okay, good.
We got all these things. It's like it's
We're trying to keep our eye on everything.
for a person with ADD, it's a nightmare. Okay, so as the youngest person in the congregation, I will go ahead and ask this question with 4 answers. It's called the 4 questions, but really it's one question with 4 answers. מה נשתנה הלילה הזה מכל הלילות, מכל הלילות, שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים חמץ ומצה. הלילה הזה כולו מצה. הלילה הזה כולו מצה. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים שאר ירקות. הלילה הזה מרור. הלילה הזה מרור. שבכל הלילות אין אנו מגבילים אפילו פעם אחת. הלילה הזה שתי פעמים. הלילה הזה שתי פעמים. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים בין יושבין ובין מצובין. הלילה הזה כולנו מצובין. הלילה הזה כולנו מצובין.
Angelo, would you mind saying those in English? Reading this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so say it loudly so they can hear in the microphone.
My phone?
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll make it bigger.
Okay.
Here,
And then say it loudly so they can hear. This is Angelo speaking.
Why is this night of Passover different from all other nights of the year? On all other nights, we eat either leavened or unleavened bread. Why on this night do we eat only matzah? On all other nights, we eat vegetables of all kinds. Why on this night must we eat bitter herbs? On all other nights, we do not dip vegetables even once. Why on this night do we dip greens into salt water and bitter herbs into sweet harosot? On all other nights, everyone sits up straight at the table. Why on this night do we recline and eat at leisure?
Okay, so now we come to the 4 children. Did you give this one up?
No, I didn't.
Ah,
I thought
okay.
maybe you and I could
Okay,
go on after.
sorry about that. We have a wicked doggie. No, actually, she's not wicked. She's trying to protect our home, but we really don't need the protection right now. Okay, so the Torah speaks of 4 types of children. One is wise, one is wicked, one is simple, and one does not know how to ask. But really, we learn that any of us can be any of these at any particular time. We all have each of these children within us, and all of these children within us at any one given time. So why don't we start with the wise one?
The wise one asks, what is this meaning of the laws and traditions God has commanded? You should teach him all the traditions of Passover, even to the last detail.
The wicked one asks, what does this ritual mean to you? By using the expression to you, he or she excludes herself from her people and denies God. Shake her arrogance and say to her, it is because of what Adonai did for me when I came out of Egypt, for me and not for her. For had she been in Egypt, she would not have been freed.
The simple one asks, what is all this? You should tell him it was with a mighty hand that God took us out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage.
And as for the one who does not know how to ask, you should open the discussion for him, as it is written, and you shall explain to your child on that day, it is because of what Adonai did for me when I came out of Egypt. Just a point of interest, this is from the Babylonian Talmud, but the Jerusalem Talmud actually switches what you tell to the simple child and what you tell to the wise child. The wise child here says you give him all of the details of the Seder, and the simple one just the idea, the major idea. And in the Jerusalem Talmud, it is reversed, understanding that there's a depth of understanding that a wise person can have about an idea, that an idea itself can be multi-layered, and that the wise child then could really get into the depth of that, whereas the simple child would not have the intellect to be able to understand all those layers of meaning. I also wanted to share with you, getting my phone here. There is a beautiful reading that was written by a colleague of mine. I actually don't know her. I think I missed it. I lost it. Oh, I lost it. I'm going to have to find it again. I'm sorry. I lost it. So we'll keep going.
We'll put a pin in it.
We'll keep going. I'll see if I can find it.
I now invite our co-president, Betty, and Eric Adams to help us tell the story in 7 short chapters.
Okay, here we go. All right.
The key word here is short.
Okay, we take turns. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. You go first.
Once upon a time, our people went into exile in the land of Egypt. During a famine, our ancestor Jacob and his family fled to Egypt, where food was plentiful. His son Joseph had risen to high position in Pharaoh's court, and our people were well respected and well regarded, secure in the power structure of the time.
Okay, chapter 2. Generations passed, and our people remained in Egypt. In time, a new Pharaoh ascended to the throne. He found our differences threatening, and he ordered our people enslaved.
In fear of rebellion, Pharaoh decreed that all Hebrew boy children be killed. 2 midwives named Shiphrah and Puah defied his orders, claiming that the Hebrew women are so hardy they give birth before we arrive, unquote. Through their courage, a boy survived. Midrash tells us he was radiant with light. Fearing for his safety, his family placed him in a basket and he floated down the Nile. He was found and adopted by Pharaoh's daughter, who named him Moshe because min hamayim meshitihu, from the water she drew him forth. She hired his mother Yocheved as his wet nurse. Thus he survived to adulthood and was raised as Prince of Egypt.
Although a child of privilege, as he grew, he became aware of the slaves who worked in the brickyards of his father. When he saw an overseer mistreat a slave, he struck the overseer and killed him. Fearing retribution, he set out across the Sinai alone. God spoke to him from a burning bush, which though its flame was not consumed. The voice called to him to lead the Hebrew people to freedom. Moses argued with God, pleading inadequacy, but God disagreed. Sometimes our responsibilities are chosen for us.
No, they choose us, is what it says.
Oh, they choose us. Okay. Well, they're
Okay.
chosen for us. Okay, sorry.
Moses returned to Egypt and went to Pharaoh to argue the injustice of slavery. He gave Pharaoh a mandate which resounds through history. Let my people go. Pharaoh refused, and Moses warned him that mighty God would strike the Egyptian people. These threats were not idle. 10 terrible plagues were unleashed upon the Egyptians. Only when his nation lay in ruins did Pharaoh agree to our liberation.
Fearful that Pharaoh would change his mind, our people fled, not waiting for their bread dough to rise. For this reason, we eat unleavened bread as we take part in their journey. Our people did not leave Egypt alone. A mixed multitude went with them. From this, we learn that liberation is not for us alone, but for all nations of the earth. Even Pharaoh's own daughter came with us and traded her old title, Bat Pharaoh, daughter of Pharaoh, for the name Batya, daughter of God.
Pharaoh's army followed us to the Sea of Reeds. We plunged into the waters. Only when we had gone as far as we could did the waters part for us. We mourn even now that Pharaoh's army drowned. Our liberation is bittersweet because people died in our pursuit. To this day, we relive our liberation that we may not become complacent, that we may always rejoice in our freedom. The end.
Thank you so much. There was a beautiful prayer that was written by Rabbi Julie Schoenfeld for this particular Pesach, for this particular Passover, that was published in the Washington Post, and it's called The Fifth Child, the Refugee Child. And she says, the refugee child asks, who will keep me safe and when can I go home? I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read the ending part. By reading the Haggadah at the Passover Seder, we acknowledge that the Exodus is not only a story from ancient times, but a story for all times. The Haggadah instructs that in every generation we must see ourselves as if we personally left Egypt, and in every generation tyrants will rise up against us to destroy us. While the Haggadah attributes the triumphant outcome of the Exodus story to miracles, the Torah clearly demonstrates that it was only through human beings acting on behalf of an unaccompanied child, the remarkable courage of Moses' mother, Yocheved, and sister, Miriam, and the empathy of Pharaoh's daughter, that the journey from slavery to freedom could be set in motion. Not merely in every generation, but every year, new tyrants arise against people around the world, and more innocent children become refugees. This Passover, we must not stop at seeing ourselves as the children of Israel, who were slaves in Egypt. This year, we must act with the courage of Yocheved and Miriam and the caring of Pharaoh's daughter, Batya, to raise our voices, devote our resources, and advocate passionately for concrete steps to bring the world's refugee children to safety. And may this be God's will, Keni Hi Ratzon, and our will as well. Amen. Okay, so now we actually lift our cup of wine for V'hisha Amda, and we uncover the matzah and recite the following. We're not actually going to drink any wine at this point. We're just going to say something and put it down. Okay?
והיא שעמדה לאבותינו ולנו, שלא אחד בלבד עמד עלינו לכלותנו, אלא שבכל דור ודור עומדים עלינו וכלותנו, והקודש ברוך הוא מצילנו מידם.
This covenant that remained constant for our ancestors and for us has saved us against any who arose to destroy us in every generation and throughout history when any stood against us to annihilate us. The Kadosh Baruch Hu kept saving us from them, and may it be God's will now as well.
The Midrash teaches us, while watching the Egyptians succumb to the 10 plagues, the angels broke into songs of jubilation. God rebuked them, saying, "My children are perishing, and you sing praises." As we recite each plague, we spill a drop of wine, symbol of joy, from our cup. Our joy in our liberation will always be tarnished by the pain visited upon the Egyptians.
Okay, so together we sing or chant the 10 plagues. Dam, blood. Svardeya, frogs. Kinim, lice. Arov, wild animals. Dever, cattle disease. Shechin, boils. Barad, hail. Arbe, locust. Choshech, darkness. And Makat Bechorot, the death of the firstborn. And we don't lick our finger because we don't want to get any joy out of this. We just wipe it off on our napkin. Okay, and on the right you'll see this was a little mnemonic device that the ancient rabbis used. It's Ditzach, Adash, and Ba'achav to remember the order of the 10 plagues. Okay, another crowd favorite. So please sing from wherever you are, the Dainu.
Ilu hotzianu mi Mitzrayim, hotzianu mi Mitzrayim, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu natan lanu et hashabat, dayenu. Dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu natan lanu et haTorah, dayenu. Dayenu, 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 dayenu.
Rabban Gamliel haya omer kosha lo amar shlosha dvarim elu bapesach lo yatsa yedei chovato ve'eluhen pesach, matzah, umaror. Rabban Gamliel would teach all who had not spoken of 3 things on Pesach had not fulfilled their obligation to tell the story. And these things are Pesach, the Passover offering, matzah, the unleavened bread, and I couldn't think of it in English, and the bitter herb, maror. Okay, so now we're going to discuss those.
The Pesach, for which our ancestors ate when the Second Temple stood, which was, and when you hear about going and giving offerings, certain offerings would be eaten. It wouldn't just be burned up entirely. That's the olah, the complete offering, but this is different. What is the reason for it? They ate the Pesach because the Holy One, blessed be God, passed over the houses of our ancestors in Egypt, as it is written in the Torah. And you shall say, it is the Passover offering of Adonai, who passes over the house of the Israelites, saving us in Mitzrayim, but struck the houses of the Egyptians. The matzah, What does it symbolize in the Seder? There was insufficient time, we know, for the dough to rise, to be baked into actual full loaves. But God was revealed to us and redeemed us, as it is written in the Torah. And they baked the dough, which they brought forth out of Egypt, into matzah, cakes of unleavened bread, which had not risen. For having been driven out of Egypt, they could not tarry, and they had made no provisions for themselves. The maror, my favorite. Why do we eat maror? For the reason that the Egyptians embittered the lives of our ancestors in Mitzrayim, as the Torah states, and they embittered our lives with servitude, with mortar and brick, without straw, with every form of slavery in the field, and with great torment.
This particular maror contains beets, which are actually one of the things that were used to make borscht in my family a couple of generations back, and maybe in your family too, and maybe even now, as we think of those in that area of the world. And many of us came from that area of the world, our ancestors, a few generations ago, and they would have cooked borscht.
We now come to the second cup of wine. We raise it and recite together the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen. L'chaim.
L'chaim. Okay, so this is one of the most important sentences in the whole Haggadah, because this is about how we connect to this central, just for lack of a better term, myth of our people. Myth not meaning false story, but big story. Our big story of our people is something that we should each connect to personally. So the words of this are B'chol dor vador chayav adam lirot et atzmo ke'ilu hu yatsa miMitzrayim. In every generation, every person should regard him or herself as if you, I, we all personally left Egypt. And again, this could not come at a more poignant time for those who are really actually fleeing and feeling that pressure to leave without anything. And that was again something spoken about by someone today on the radio who was talking about having fled and going to a neighboring country, and how she's going to be making Passover with her family, and saying this sentence and saying, we are in it right now.
Bechol dor vador. In every generation we must look upon ourselves as if from slavery we were freed. Bechol dor vador. In every generation we must look around and help all the ones who are in need. Bechol dor vador. Chayav adam lirot et atzmo ke'ilu hu yatsa miMitzrayim. Bechol dor vador. In every generation we must lend a helping hand to the stranger and the friend. Bechol dor vador. Every generation are the righteous of all nations on whom we all depend. Bechol dor vador chayav adam lirot et atzmo ke'ilu hu yatsa miMitzrayim. Bechol dor vador. In every every generation we must look upon ourselves as if from slavery we were freed. Bechol dor vador, in every generation we must look around and help all the ones who are in need. We must look around and help all the ones who are in need.
Beautiful. I was wondering if you were going to take out that guitar. It's been
Yeah.
sitting next to him the whole Seder so far, and he hasn't grabbed it and played. So I'm so glad he did. Okay, so now we have another occasion. Actually, are you going to play guitar for this?
I guess, why not? I already have
Okay.
it on.
Okay, good. So, B'tzeit Yisrael, this is one of the Hallel Psalms, and it's traditional to sing a couple of these before the meal and then a couple of these after the meal, which you can do on your own. But this is the one that we've chosen to sing all together because we thought probably you know it, maybe you know it, and if you do, please join us.
B'tzeit Yisrael mi Mitzrayim, Beit Yaakov me'am the ways, Hayta Yehuda lekodsho, Yisrael mamshelotav, Hayam rav vayanos vayanos, Hayadeh Yisov le'achor, Heharim raketu chelim, Gevaot kivnei tzon, Malecha hayam ki atanus, Hayadeh Yisov le'achor, Harim tirkedu chelim, Gevaot kivnei tzon, Milivnei Adon kuli aretz, Milivnei Elohai Yaakov, Ha'ochi hatzoram gamayim, Chalomish lemano mayim, B'tzeit Yisrael mi Mitzrayim, Beit Yaakov me'am lo'ez. Oh, we have somebody. There we go.
Okay. This is the actual hand washing. So I follow a custom that some of you may follow, that if you grew up in an observant household, that after washing the hands and saying the blessing, which is Al Netilat Yadayim, that we don't speak from that time until we make motzi. And in this case, we're making motzi and matzah, motzi matzah, both of those steps. So why don't we actually sing through the steps until
Yes.
matzah?
Yes.
Okay.
Kadesh urchatz karpas yachatz, Magid rochza motzi matzah.
Okay, so I'm going to go and do Netilat Yadayim in my home kitchen. I'm going to do a little hand washing, an actual hand washing. You may do so as well. And if you want to just sing a nigun as people are doing that, unless you want to hop in and
Yeah.
do that as well.
I was going to do it. Here's the blessing. Al netilat yadayim. I leave you to it.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al achilat matzah. Amen.
Amen. This will be a good piece.
Oh, well, I guess that's enough.
Now we come to my favorite part of the Seder. Kadesh urchatz karpas yachatz magid roxa motzi matzah maror.
So now we take a little bit of matzah and we dip it in the maror, the bitter herb, as we say the bracha. Oh, you don't have any over there. Okay.
Yeah.
You have some?
We're good.
Okay, we all say the bracha for the maror.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al achilat maror. Kadesh urchatz karpas yachatz magid roxa motzi matzah maror korech.
We're almost there. We're almost there.
Which one
Okay.
is this?
This is one without nuts, and that one has almonds.
Got it.
Okay, so now we're going to take
Almonds. No.
2 pieces of the matzah. 2 pieces of matzah so that you can make a little sandwich. And the sage Hillel originated the tradition of eating matzah and maror together, combining the bread of liberation with a remembrance of the bitterness of slavery. There's no specific blessing for this, so we're just gonna, I don't know how to mute. I don't want to mute. Okay.
Can I just a tiny little bit of maror?
Can we, how do I press to mute? I don't know. Sorry, I don't know. I don't own the mute button. And Dan was getting a little bit.
Wish you did.
Don't you wish I did?
Okay. And now we have our little Hillel sandwich. This is when Passover really starts for me. The Hillel
Now,
sandwich.
When I was a little girl, I used to think it was a hello sandwich. Hello, we're almost at the meal. Okay, next slide.
Yay!
Ready, let's sing.
Kadesh urchatz
Oh.
karpas yachatz magid roxa motzi matzah maror korech shulchan orech.
You always have to wait till you fully swallow before starting to sing. That's a good lesson for us all.
I did.
So it's all that horseradish.
Oh, no. I need more.
Well, there's, where's
Anyway.
the jar? Here it is.
I want to wish you all a B'tei Avon and a Chag Sameach. Enjoy your meal. Enjoy the rest of your Seders. And come tomorrow morning because we are going to have a festival Shabbat service. The first for the first morning of Pesach tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. in the sanctuary. You're welcome to come in person or to watch it on YouTube. We'll be live streaming as well. So I hope you'll all join us for that. And we'll see you then. Chag Sameach, everyone.
Chag Sameach v'kasher.
Do we light candles now?
You can light candles